Hey, Shalom, it's Stephanie, and if you're out there, welcome in. I want to talk about what it means to be blessed in spirit, as Jesus was telling us, and or poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. There was an introduction to the Sermon on the Mount, and a lot of us are searching. We're searching, and it does not mean I'm going to tell you what it means and what it doesn't mean. Okay, from the Bible, okay, and from a biblical standpoint. So you may be very blessed, but you don't feel like it because you just been going through a hardship. Okay, we are not righteous because of ourselves. We are righteous because of Jesus. Okay, but it does not make it easier. But some people want to take it to the extreme and try to say that because we're in extreme poverty that we're blessed. Jesus never meant that. He understands how much pain it could be. When you can't put food on the table for your family, even working as much as you can, it does not mean that that is what Jesus is talking about. This is what the world will try to do. People take the scriptures and they try to twist it around. On the other hand, it is very hard for people sometimes that are extremely rich to understand what it is to want anything, because they can fulfill all that need. So a lot of times they don't realize their dependence for God. Okay. All right. So I'm going to open with a prayer, and then I'll just read this real quick. I'm not going to be on here long. Hopefully you're out there. Okay. So, dear Heavenly Father, I come to you in your Son, Jesus Christ's name, asking to please bless this message. I pray for the viewer and myself, Lord, that even in our pains and all this, Lord, that we come to prayer and ask you for our needs. In your Son, holy and precious name, amen. Now, I've had good times and I've had bad times, but I've seen God. I was able to turn to God more in my desperate times. It was the only thing that I could do was turn to God. And so if you never find yourself in that place, I hope that God brings you to that place. Not that, He destroys you or anything, but I hope that there is a time where you have to just depend on God, okay? Because this world cannot satisfy us, no matter where you are, okay? There is things that we enjoy, but it will never satisfy us like God, okay? So Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit means that we are dependent upon God. And like myself, I've been, hello, how are you, Papaya? Thank you for coming in, Allison. Good morning. Welcome in. I find myself, I've been in such desperate places before and just so tired and weary. And I was trying to do all of my own strength, but I was desperate and I was searching, and I was poor in spirit, meaning I know I'm a wretched sinner, okay? And I was carrying it around as if I had to earn my salvation. We don't earn salvation. There's nothing that we could do. We need God. So it says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So you may be very blessed and you don't even feel like it because you're struggling, but just understand that God sees you, okay? But in your struggling, never fail to bring your request to God, okay? Because He does care for you, okay? It does not mean that we never go through anything, but I just want to look this up real quick. Hold on. I'm looking it up now, okay? All right, so this is the ones who know they cannot rely on themselves. This is from the internet. And that they are not self-sufficient, that they live as beggars before God. They feel their need for God and recognize every good that comes from Him as a gift, as a grace. Those who are poor in spirit treasure what they receive. So that is the poor in spirit, that we are spiritually poor. We can't do this life in our own strength. But like I said, a lot of people that have everything, they don't need anybody to give them anything. They're extremely wealthy. They don't really see that spiritually they are poor. Poor in spirit means we depend on God. And that's, it does not mean that somebody never can satisfy any of their debts, or anybody that can never purchase anything that they really need. That does not mean poor in spirit, okay? If somebody's telling you that, they're taking salt and rubbing it in a wound, okay? Because some of us are really just making it just little, barely hanging on by a thread, and people just, oh, well, that's their lot. And no, that's not what Jesus came to do. But we recognize that we need God. And there's nothing, because we don't know for sure what the future holds. So every day, whether we're in good times or bad times, we know that we have to call on God. And that's what it means, is we depend on God for our daily bread. When people have too much, they're not hungry for God to fill their needs. They can fulfill everything, and we don't know if we'll always be at that place. Hey, good morning. No to Chance, good morning. I'm not going to be on here long, but some people look at people that are in extreme poverty, and they harden their hearts and stuff like this. Please don't ever do that. And you may be in a good situation now, and you may have a good husband and everything, or a good wife, and you guys may have all the money that you need to satisfy your needs. But what happens when both, let's say, God forbid, you both lose your jobs? Well, then a lot of people have stuff to fall back on. Well, some people are raising children by themselves, and they are struggling. But I'll tell you what, God always sent somebody in my way, even in my desperate times. And it is desperate when you can't even go to the laundromat to wash your clothes because it's too expensive. This is where I found myself at one place. But there's people that are even in a worse situation. But I had to wash clothes by hand, and if you think it's easy, it's not. Good morning. Good morning, Jessica. Good morning. Hey, Todd. Good morning. You're up early. You're up early, Todd. But please don't ever feel that you're over. Just because you're in a good situation now does not mean that God will always have you there. Okay? God holds every day. And, what happens when stuff hits the fan. So you can't put your trust in the treasures of this world. And, God, I hope that you come to a place where you understand that you need God, whether you're in good times or bad times. And if you can help somebody, I'm not saying that you do all of it, but if you can help somebody, that you help them, because people are doing the most that they possibly can. And think about it, if you have minimum wage, it's extremely hard. I understand it's not your whole burden to carry, but if you can help somebody, please don't withhold it, okay? And God sees when you help, when you bless somebody, that God sees everything that you do, whether you make a video about it or not, or you tell people. God sees you, and you don't need the pomp and circumstance, but you rely on God. I've been in desperate situations where I know that the only way that I was going to get a breakthrough is with God. I never stole from people. Even in desperate situations, I never stole. But sometimes people do take food from the store because they find themselves in desperate situations, And I'm not saying this is the way to go, but that's what poor in spirit means, is that we're wretched sinners and there's nothing that we can do to save ourselves, and that the only way we get through this life is with God. I don't want to do this life without God. Never. So that's what it means. It does not mean, so even people that have a ton of money, they are spiritually poor because, they don't understand their need for God, because God has blessed them with everything. So I hope that you will turn your eyes to God and just thank Him for everything that you do have. And even in the bad times, that you don't turn your back on Him. Just know that God, without testing, our faith is nothing. without being tested, the faith is not proven. So if you haven't gone through testing, trust me, you will go through testing. Every message that every Bible verse I hear, and the Bible is on my way to understand what God is kind of doing. I don't understand everything, but when you look back, then you see what God was doing in that burning off this stuff and preparing me for worse times, or understanding where people are at, because until you're at that place, a lot of times people don't understand. Like an extremely rich, wealthy person who has never had to go without food or try to figure out how to feed their family has no living idea how it is. But if they have experienced hunger in that way, they will understand that they don't want to see people suffer like this. You understand? Good morning. Yes, for me, early. Took daughter to work. Oh, time for a nap. Oh, you're a good dad, Todd. God bless you. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get off of here. I got to continue my day, but I am poor in spirit because there's nothing I could do to save myself, and I need God. Without Him, I'm nothing. So I hope this message touches you, and so don't let people rub salt on your wounds. If you're really going through a tough time and you really find yourself like struggling like most people, just understand that God sees you, but don't feel shame if you have to ask for help, because I've had to go to plenty of food pantries and stuff like this. Some people never experience that, but just know that you're blessed when we understand that God sees our needs, and if we can do something for somebody to help them. Okay. All right, so God bless you guys. I'm gonna go. Like, share, subscribe, prayer request, and I hope to see you again. Thank you for coming in, Todd. Thank you, Niv Williams. Thank you, Nivia, Jessica. Thank you for coming in, guys. All right, God bless you guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.